Welcome back to Echo Mind Documentaries. If this is your first time here, subscribe, like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. What does a civilization look like when it stops believing in itself? Walk through any of China's thousands of abandoned mountain villages and you will find your answer carved into stone and buried under moss. Somewhere deep in the mountains of China, entire villages sit frozen in time. No demolition, no cleanup, just silence. The question is not why they were abandoned. The question is why no one ever went back. There are places in China where time did not slow down, it stopped entirely. Deep inside the mountain ranges of Zhejiang, Fujian, Guizhou, and Hunan, entire villages sit exactly as they were left, sometimes decades ago, sometimes longer. Stone homes with wooden beams still holding the ceiling, ceramic bowls still resting on shelves, faded photographs of people no one can name anymore, pressed behind cracked glass frames, looking out at rooms no one has walked through in years. These are not ruins in the dramatic sense. There was no earthquake, no war, no fire that consumed them. These villages did not collapse, they were simply left. For centuries, mountain communities in China built their lives around what the land could give them. Terraced rice paddies cut into steep hillsides, wells dug by hand, homes constructed from local stone and timber, generation after generation, each family adding to what the one before them had built. The mountain was not an obstacle, it was the architecture of their entire world. But modernity does not climb slowly, it arrives all at once. Beginning in the latter half of the 20th century, China underwent one of the largest internal migrations in human history. Rural populations moved towards cities at a scale that had never been seen before. Factories, infrastructure projects, and economic development zones pulled younger generations away from the land. What had taken centuries to build was abandoned in less than a generation. The elderly stayed for a while. They had roots too deep to move and memories too full to leave behind. But one by one, they too were gone, some to follow their children, others simply to time. And when the last person left, the village did not announce itself, it just grew quiet. Nature moved in without ceremony. Moss crept across the stone thresholds, tree roots pushed through the floors of homes that once held whole families. Vines climbed the exterior walls as if trying to pull the buildings back into the earth. In some villages, the forest has advanced so completely that from a distance you would not know there was ever a human settlement there at all. In Zhejiang province, a village called Houtouwan sits on Shengshan Island, its homes buried beneath a skin of green ivy so thick the original stone walls are almost invisible. Photographs of it have circulated across the internet for years, drawing the kind of attention that the village never received while it was alive. People call it beautiful now. What they are really feeling is grief dressed in the language of aesthetics. Houtouwan was once a fishing community of nearly 3,000 people. The sea provided. Then the fishing industry shifted. Transportation to the mainland became complicated. The young left first, then the middle-aged, then almost everyone. By the early 2000s, only a handful of elderly residents remained. Today, only a few people still live there, caretakers of a memory that belongs to thousands of people scattered across the country. It is not unique. Researchers estimate that tens of thousands of villages across rural China have been abandoned or are in the process of being abandoned. Some reports place the figure higher. The scale is difficult to comprehend. Each one of those villages was a world. Each had its own dialect variations, its own festival calendar, its own way of salting fish or shaping clay, or reading the weather by watching which direction the birds flew. That knowledge does not transfer cleanly to a city apartment. In the mountains of Guizhou, minority ethnic communities built homes of dark wood on steep hillsides, the architecture a direct answer to the terrain. These were not just houses, they were centuries of accumulated engineering adapted specifically to that location, that climate, those materials. When those communities migrate, the buildings remain, but the intelligence that created them does not follow. Some of these villages have been studied, cataloged, and photographed by preservation researchers. Others have no record at all. travelers who stumble upon them are often the first outsiders to walk those paths in years. What they find tends to follow a pattern. Calendars still hung on walls, the last month circled. School desks arranged in rows in empty classrooms. A blackboard still chalked with a lesson no one finished. A child's shoe wedged between the roots of a tree at the edge of a collapsed courtyard. Objects that meant nothing specific but accumulated into something devastating. There is a particular kind of silence in these places, not the silence of emptiness, the silence of something that was full and is no longer. The Chinese government has made varying efforts to address what officials call hollow villages, communities depopulated to the point of functional collapse. Some villages have been officially dissolved, their land absorbed into consolidated rural development programs. Others have been earmarked for rural tourism, the abandonment itself becoming the attraction. A small number have been partially restored, though restoration raises difficult questions about what is being preserved and for whom. Because these places were not museums when they were alive, they were arguments for a particular way of being in the world. An argument that said the land matters, that slowness has value, that a life built across generations in one place accumulates something that cannot be replicated by speed or convenience. Migration is not a crime. The people who left were not wrong to leave. Poverty is real. Opportunity is real. No one should be asked to stay rooted in hardship out of obligation to scenery or sentiment. But something was lost that is difficult to name. Not just architecture or craftsmanship or biodiversity, though all of those are real losses too. Something closer to a mode of attention, a way of knowing how to read a place deeply because you have no choice but to live inside it. The abandoned villages of China's mountains are not simply historical artifacts, they are evidence. Evidence of how quickly a civilization can decide, collectively and without formal announcement, that an entire way of life is no longer worth continuing. And perhaps that is why people keep seeking them out, driving hours on unmarked roads, hiking uphill through brush to reach them. Not for tourism exactly, not for photography, though the photographs are always extraordinary, but for something harder to articulate. Maybe it is the desire to stand inside a question that has no comfortable answer. What do we lose when we leave? What follows us? What stays behind? What does a locked door on an abandoned house in the mountains say about who we have become and who we are still deciding to be? The moss keeps growing, the stone keeps holding, the photographs keep watching, and the mountains, as they have always, keep their silence.